This is Long Way to the Top, and I'm your host, Shane Bryan. In the words of the immortal AC/DC, it is harder than it looks. These interviews will give you a glimpse into the lives of the artists that we've sung along with, danced and rocked out to. Some go deep into their past and others celebrate their recent releases. But all of them show that regardless of who you are, it's always a long way to the top. Josh Phillips, rock keyboardist and composer, has worked with Procol Harum until they disbanded last year. He's written and performed with Big Country, Leo Sayer, Pete Townsend, Midge Ure, Eric Clapton and Paul McCartney. And he's just finished working on a project with rock and roll manager Ian Grant to bring awareness to Parkinson's disease. The new song, headlined by Leo Sayer, called Think Loud, has a who's who of UK rock royalty, with appearances by John Illsey of Dire Straits, Marcella Detroit of Shakespeare's Sister, past and current members of the Stranglers, Big Country, Blondie, Sex Pistols, and even tennis legend Pat Cash. I'm honoured to have Josh Phillips on Long Way to the Top. Josh, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for making me so welcome. What an introduction.
Oh, I love the introduction.
That's a long list.
It is a long list.
Some of it is exactly accurate. With the Stranglers and the Blondie guys, they're in the video, but they're not on the track.
Yes, correct.
So that's worth just pointing out there.
Yes. But there was an involvement of some sort.
Absolutely, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but most of that is absolutely correct. And well, I'm honoured to have done a lot of those things and to have worked with so many of those people. The Pete Townsend thing is really interesting because when I first started, I was still at school. And I don't think this is mentioned anywhere in any of this at the moment, but when I was a kid, I was actually part of a band called Cross Section.
Right.
And we were the band auditioned for and got the part in the Who film Quadrophenia.
Right, yes.
Yeah. That's back in 1978, which seems like about 20 years ago to me, but it isn't. I know
it's a long time ago.
It's a lot longer. So we were mere kids, but we were, so that was my first introduction to Pete. And then I formed, after Big Country, actually, I formed a band with Mark, the drummer from Big Country, and Pete's brother, Simon Townsend. So we started getting involved very much with that whole Townsend thing. So that's that involvement there.
Yeah. Do you think, back, and we'll talk about the current project shortly, but do you think, looking back though, you casually mentioned your involvement with, the Who's Quadrophenia. I mean, is that something that you look at now and go, wow, I can't believe that actually happened, but at the time it was just happening?
Yeah. I'll show you something. I'll get a picture off the wall. Hold on a minute. Yeah. This here, Shane.
Yeah.
You can see that.
I can see that.
There's Roger.
Six striking looking guys. Yes, Roger Daltrey.
Yeah, and then I'm on his right. So that's me there.
Right. Yeah.
That one. And that, so that was quite a thing to have achieved as kids, know. And yes, so I said it casually. I think probably because it's quite a long time ago. And a lot of stuff has happened since then. And of course, when you're kids and you're 15, 16-year-olds still at school and you've got Roger Daltrey standing next to you, I suddenly started getting girlfriends. I don't know how that happened. But
he had a look, didn't he?
Oh man, yeah. I mean, how long have you got time for me to tell you a couple of stories here?
Yeah, go for it. Absolutely, yes.
Yeah, Roger. We were at the it was called Ramport Studios in those days. It became Townhouse, and this was in Battersea in London.
Yeah,
and we were kids. We were really green behind, wet behind the ears.
Yeah,
and we turned up, and Roger turned up. It was so rock and roll. He turned up in a red Ferrari. I remember him getting out. He had white sneakers on. Blue jeans, a white t-shirt and red braces, and his massive hair.
Yes.
And he came in, all right, lads, how you doing? And we're like, oh, God, that's Roger Daltrey, Oh, God, it's Roger Daltrey. And my first encounter with Roger that was a little bit more intimate than I expected it to be is I came out of the toilet. They were playing darts, and the dartboard was on the door of the toilet. And I came out and opened the door, and this dart went stuck in my shoulder here.
So Roger Daltrey threw a dart in your shoulder.
stuck in my shoulder. That was my first, and I was, "Oh shit, that hurts, Roger." You know, Mr. Daltrey, although I've probably been very polite. And he went at camera and said, "Well, that won't fucking hurt." And he pulled it out, and they carried on playing. And then we went and started recording. So that was my first introduction. I saw him get out of the Ferrari and then throw a dart at me. And that image, I can never unthink, and I'll never forget that as probably the first encounter with a rock and roll star.
Yeah. Growing up, I mean, like, you know, the Who were so amazing as a band, you know, not just in the UK but right around the world. Growing up, did you think more about, you know, bands like the Who rather than bands like the Beatles or Eric Clapton, or was it just this incredible time?
To be honest with you, sorry, Shane. To be honest with you, Shane, I kind of put them all in different slots in my head. You know, as a keyboard player, I was really into obviously the Deep Purples of the world and the Genesis and the ELPs and all that sort of stuff. And then there were the rock guitar bands. But the Who always, even before I was involved in Quadrophenia, they always stuck out to me as just something else from a different planet. The songs were absolutely brilliant. And in fact, when you listen to some of the songs, they're quite Beatley because, of course, they were all around at the same time anyway, in the mid-'60s when they were cutting their early tracks, you know.
Yeah, but their music doesn't really date that much. Like a lot of 60s and early 70s music does date, but...
Yeah, absolutely. No, it really doesn't. And I think that's because it was so unique. And I think that's why it just didn't date. It was just, and it still hasn't dated. I mean, when you listen to I Can See for Miles, or if you listen to Won't Get Fooled Again, or any of those things, there's only one band that sound like that, and that's The Who. And I know Pete pretty well. I don't know him as well as I used to see him quite a lot a few years ago, and I probably haven't seen him for a few years now, but he's still legendary. He's still just, man, he's one of those rock stars that, like, he'll always be Pete Townsend. He's never sold out. He's just, you know, that guy that's angry and smashes his guitar. It's like, I mean, I've never seen... Have I seen him do that? Yeah, I did see him do that once, Yes. But I mean, the whole thing was unique, that whole thing. And I think the wonderful thing, they weren't glam rock, they weren't heavy rock, they weren't prog, they were just a kind of bit of everything, but they were the Who. So a massive respect for those guys, you know.
And you know, you've gone, you know, even to the other side of things, you know, with Procol Harum. I mean, because that was very prog rock.
Very different thing. Very, very different thing. Although at times quite rocky and at times very proggy. But I mean, Gary, sadly, no longer with us, as you know. Gary has that wonderful, he was a brilliant piano player.
Yeah.
And an absolutely astonishing singer. I mean, if you listen to, in fact, I think it was Ray. No, was it Ray? No, it was, can't remember who, maybe Duke Ellington or somebody like that met Gary in the 60s and said to Gary, you know what? I thought you were black before he met him. Because he's got that sort of soul, you know, and the black guys were doing the sort of soul music in the 60s and the bluesy stuff. And Gary's got that amazing ability to be soulful and stuff. So it certainly crossed over from prog rock, and it got very proggy at times. I mean, if you listen to, there's a song that we do occasionally, and it's from the late 60s out, one of the albums. We do a song called Inhaled 'Twas in I, and it's about 17 minutes long. It's really complicated and it really goes on, but the fans absolutely love it. But I mean, Gary used to describe us as actually just a posh blues band, or a blues band with posh chords, you know. So fundamental roots were in blues. But at times, I think everybody could certainly stretch their wings as far as and flex their muscles as musicians.
And coming in as a keyboardist, though, I mean, you must have really had to have your wits about you, especially when you did a 17-minute long piece, because you step out of line. Those prog rock fans, they're brutal.
Cool. He's played the wrong note there, or he's played the right note, but just at the wrong time, or whatever it might be. But and actually, the weird thing about the Procol fans is that a lot of them are like bachelors of music, and you know, and they used to come. In fact, we started complaining about it in the end, but they used to come to sound checks, and they'd sit there making notes. Josh played 3 bars of Bach Staccato and Fugue in D minor. It's like, well, I was only fiddling about on a keyboard, you know. And then, you know, Jeff Whitehorn played a bit of Grieg's Piano Concerto, bizarrely enough, on his guitar or whatever it might have been. So yeah, we had pretty intense, and we probably still do have pretty intense fans, but we love them.
Yeah, of course. That's what makes the world go round, isn't it?
Yeah. And Procol, some of it is complicated. Some of it actually isn't as complicated as you think. Gary, I kind of started to understand where Gary was coming from as a composer after a few years of being in the band. And often I don't mean he would repeat himself, but it would be, I kind of know where he's going to go there.
Yeah.
And it started to become just almost second nature to play with the band. But I first played with them. In fact, I first saw them, Shane, in 1972.
Right.
And I went with my sisters and my mum, and I remember them coming on stage. Gary came on stage, and all the guys coming on stage, and Gary had a naval jacket on and a t-shirt underneath that.
Yeah.
And I remember coming out of that gig. It was a famous gig of the Rainbow Theatre in London with a full orchestra and choir. And I remember coming out of that gig and saying, "That's what I'm going to do," to my mum. I was 11 or 12 or whatever it was. And it's really weird because while I was still on the Procol thing, it was in 1991 that I was recording with Simon Townsend and Pete Townsend's, Pete's brother Simon and Mark Brzezicki from Big Country and a few other guys. And we were in the studio and the phone rang and I picked up the phone. This guy said, can I speak to Mark Brzezicki, please? I said, I'm afraid he's actually recording in the studio. I was in the control room. Well, get him to give me a buzz when you take this number down. My name's Gary Brooker. So I wrote this down, and Mark came out of the studio, and I said, "Oh, Mark, you got to ring this guy up." "Who's he?" He said. I said, "Oh, don't worry about it. I just give him a buzz." I kind of knew who it was, but I didn't think because the band broke up in 1978.
Yeah.
Mark came off the phone. He said, "Oh, I've just been asked to do an album." I said, "What, with Procol Harum?" And he said, "Well, how do you know that?" I said, "Well, you've just been speaking to..." And he said, "Well, I've been speaking to the manager." I said, No. You've been speaking to Gary Brooker, Procol Harum."
Yeah.
Anyway, he didn't know that I got invited down to the studio, funnily enough, when they were recording, and Gary and I hit it off, and that was in 91. And then I first played with the band when Matthew Fisher pulled out to go and study advanced computer mathematics at Cambridge University. Mm. And I joined the band in 93 for some shows, then 95, 96. And then I joined the band on a permanent basis as a member in 2004. Mm. So all those years later, having seen them at the Rainbow, I had no idea that when I said I'm going to do that, I didn't mean I'm going to join that band.
Yeah. I hear this all the time. Like I was chatting with Steve Lukather from Toto, and he was talking about, when he first met, great guy, and he was talking about when he first met the Beatles and how it was almost like his destiny, and then now, he's been touring with Ringo Starr Band, and it's just, is it almost like it's something that sets you in motion, that becomes part of your DNA?
Do you know, maybe, Shane, that's an interesting concept and an interesting direction of thought, actually, because maybe it was all predestined in my head. Maybe I knew, or maybe I didn't. But the mind's an incredible thing.
It is, yeah.
And it maybe that was working through me all the time, because I certainly grew up as a musician, learning the Procol stuff. And in fact, when Mark joined the band initially, Mark Brzezicki, I used to jam with him in the studio, and I say, "Right, what songs do you want to learn, Mark? Because I know them all." And that's how. He said, "How do you know them all?" I said, "Because I've been listening to them for donkey's years."
Yeah.
And I did become a very dear friend of Gary's, and hence I wrote the last album with him, Novum, which if you get a moment, you should play some of that stuff as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, speaking of working with people, and now you're working with them again, Leo Sayer. So you worked with Leo Sayer way back when, yeah?
Yeah. You know what? I first met Leo in the mid to late 90s, I guess, which again feels like 5 years ago, but of course it isn't.
Yeah.
It's 25 years ago.
Yes.
And he'd come over here and he was about to do a UK tour. And he hadn't quite picked up the band yet. He had a couple of people in mind. I got invited along to play with him. And it was one of those moments again, I think because I'd played with Procol at that stage, or I'd done a few shows with him. I wasn't a member of the band at that stage. Gary and Leo knew each other.
Yeah.
And I don't know whether Leo got a tip off from Gaza or whatever, but somebody said, "Get Josh in the band." And I had just finished playing, or I was still kind of playing with Midge Ure at the time.
Yeah.
From Ultravox. but touring was getting tricky because I was trying to play with 3 bands on and off, kind of Procol and my own stuff that I was doing at the time. And then, of course, Leo there. And Leo and I just really hit it off. He knows everybody. He's one of those guys.
Yes.
I mean, he really does. And he really, I mean, you know that he was originally, I think I'm right here. You better check your Google on that. But I'm pretty sure that Leo's first band on that first album is pretty much Toto. It's the Picaros. It's
I
Lukather.
think you're correct, actually. Yes.
Yeah, and it's Dave Page. You know, You Make Me Feel Like Dancing, all the songs. And I think Leo was asked to be the singer in Toto.
Wow. Yeah.
I think. Better check that, but I'm pretty sure I'm right in saying that. And
would have made Africa completely different, wouldn't it?
Yeah, just a bit. But I mean, he didn't, because he had a big career happening already for himself at that stage, so he didn't bother doing it. And of course, Toto were not really a proper band to start with, were they? They were a kind of studio band.
They were a studio band that did a lot of work for a lot of artists at the time, and then they decided we should do our own thing. Yeah. So
that band was terrific. And Leo, of course, he really, as I say, he really does know those people. It's like, who he doesn't know is probably a smaller list.
Yes.
You know? Yeah, and boundless energy and boundless enthusiasm, and he's got a terrific voice still. I mean, he's a great harp player too, blues harp player, and he's a great writer. And I have written some stuff with Leo. I don't think any of it has ever seen the light of day yet, but you never know with these things. You know, sometimes something comes up and it's like, that would be a good song for that.
And of course, it was through his involvement with your new project that it came into my awareness that it was happening, and I just said, I've got to give Leo a call. But in actual fact, it wasn't Leo. You know, when I found out what actually happened, it wasn't Leo that had started it. It was another gentleman that you have had a long career with. Is that correct? And that's Ian Grant.
Exactly right. Well, I've known Ian now again for a lot longer than I realised, because with Mark Brzezicki, drummer Mark, he and I in the mid '80s were just I think we were doing sessions together in London or something. And I was playing at that time with a Black American band called Heatwave. Right. If you remember Heatwave,
yes,
like Boogie Nights, Away Forever, and all that stuff.
Yes.
And I'd done a couple of world tours with them. I just finished making an album with them. This must have been about 87, maybe 88, something like that. And Big Country were in the studio recording an album called Peace in Our Time.
Yep. Which
had been recorded in Los Angeles. Mark was over there, and Mark, I think he didn't send me an email. He must have called me from LA, I guess. And he said, Josh, we've got keyboards on this album. The producer's put in keyboards on the album. We're about to start touring the album in 6 months or so. And I think I ended up playing on a couple of the tracks towards the end of their recording, but over here. And he said, would you be up for doing it? I said, yeah, I'd love to. I love Big Country. It's a great band. I mean, I couldn't imagine keyboards with it at the time.
Yes.
But when I heard the new record, and then I started to adapt the old songs and came up some bits. So I was almost like an orchestra behind them. I was doing a lot of big rock and roll pads and strings and all that sort of stuff, and playing some of the melodies. And then, of course, the stuff that was written with the keyboards in mind, that kind of all made sense.
Yep.
So anyway, he said, well, look, you'll hear pretty shortly from Ian Grant, who's our manager. So, of course, Ian and I locked up, and I don't know, again, it wouldn't have been email, actually, it must have been phone calls or whatever, or faxes, it would have been in those days. And I went in and met Ian, and Ian and I have now known each other since 1988, 88, something like that.
And just to set the scene for people who are listening, Ian Grant, and he sent me an email earlier this evening, and he said, I just thought you'd like to know that I gave AC/DC their very first London gig in 1976.
Wow. Now, I didn't know that.
Yeah. And he said on the same gig, were the Stranglers, Sex Pistols, supporting, Joe Strummers and the 101ers. It's like, this guy has had a very big career in early rock and roll history.
He certainly has, Shane, and I've got tremendous respect for that guy, because He's a proper manager. He's old school. I don't mean he walks around with a baseball bat. I don't mean that, but he's same surname, but yeah. But no, Ian's one of those guys. He's incredibly passionate about music.
Yeah.
He's one of those guys that when he gets behind something, he absolutely lives and breathes it day and night, 24 hours a day. And if he's on your side, he'll work his ass off. And even though now, poor guy is suffering from, as we know, Parkinson's, which we'll get onto.
Yeah, yeah. So he has Parkinson's disease. Yeah.
Yes, he does. Yeah, which is, I saw Ian about 8 years ago, and I think this was probably the beginning of it. And I don't think I said to him, "I think you need to get tested for Parkinson's." But one of my sisters is a Parkinson's specialist nurse.
Yeah,
and I'd been speaking to her about symptoms on other people, and I put two and two together, and I thought, I think Ian might need. Anyway, sure enough, he did get tested. I think not long after he saw me, but I certainly hadn't said it to him, but I certainly recognised it. And actually, he became on the unofficial side with my sister because she couldn't officially treat him because he wasn't an official patient, but she would certainly, out of hours, give him some time. And I know that they hit it off tremendously, and she's been very, very caring and helpful and supportive towards Ian. But that brings us on to this, how this all came together, because Ian, you asked me earlier, actually, a little bit snippet there. How is he? Well, I think he's doing pretty well. Yeah. But one of the symptoms that Ian has, because there are 47 different symptoms of Parkinson's disease.
Right.
And he's got the reduced speech capacity. All the words are in his head. Yeah. He struggles to get them out. At times, he's caused a little bit of a stammer in him, but also his voice is quite quiet, and at times can sound a little bit slurred. And you'll hear in the lyrics that Ian wrote the lyrics to the song. That's the amazing thing. So it's the first time our manager has ever written a lyric to a song. It's the first song I think he's ever written a lyric to. Yes. But again, it's really heartfelt and passionate, and so his speech sometimes sounds a little slurred. But the Think Loud therapy is all about the ability to project your voice and thoughts into just in your head, because you think you're talking okay and loud, but you're talking quite quietly. And it's like, no, you've got to really make an effort. So hence the lyric that Ian wrote called Think Loud is all about the therapy sessions that Ian Grant was involved in. Yeah. And he said to another friend of ours, Paul Mitchell, can we do something? And Paul said, actually, why don't we do a record for Parkinson's World Parkinson's Awareness Day? Is what we thought it was, but it turns out it's a month, actually. Right. And we got chatting about it. And I said, yeah, I'll help you out on that. Of course I will. It's for Ian, Yeah. And there was that synchronicity between Ian and my sister Caroline. So I kind of felt, well, I should be involved in this somehow. So it was just almost a contractual obligation to be part of it, if you like.
So when is International Parkinson's Month?
It's right now.
Right now.
I think it started release, I think 11th of April until I think about the 11th of May, something like that. Yes. So the tune is out.
Originally you or someone suggested Leo for maybe a bit part.
A bit part, yeah. Like almost, a walk on, walk off part. He and I go back, as I said, a long way. Paul Mitchell, the guy I co-wrote the song with, who's a wonderful guitar player. In fact, that's his guitar on there. As much as Paul did a great job on the demo, I was always thinking in the back of my mind, you know what? We need somebody well-known on this, because Paul's not a known singer. No offense, Paul, by the way. No, make that quite clear.
You're a brilliant guitarist. Yes.
He's great, yeah.
Yes.
And another one of those guys with boundless energy and enthusiasm. So we were looking at trying to get people to sing it, and you've only got that silver bullet once in your life. You can't keep finding the silver bullet of people. And then I asked Paul Carrick. Paul loved the song. He said, "I'm really sorry, Josh. I'd love to get involved, but I'm just too busy. Just about to go on tour in Japan." And a couple of other people here and there. So anyway, I just thought, look, I'll just I'll text Leo and say, hey, Leo, doing this song for Parkinson's, Ian Grant, because Ian and Leo go back a long way. That's another subject. And he came back and said, Josh, send me the song. I'll try and get onto it in the next few days if I can. I said, Leo, it's a bit more urgent than that. Like a few days, he's kind of done work. He said, all right, I've just got married today. He said, yeah. I'll see what I can do later. And I was like, that is so Leo. He would never want to, he would never say no. If he likes something and believes in it, he'll go for it. Anyway, sure enough, I sent him the song and he wrote back and said, it's great. Send me the track without the vocal on it. I'll have a look. A couple of days later, we had the song with Leo Sayer on it. And man, it was like heaven sent. His vocal, I always knew, because he's got a great bluesy voice, Leo, when he wants to be bluesy that way. And he's got quite a raspy voice too. You know, he's got a bit of gravel in there.
Yeah, he does.
And it's the real thing. It's not put on. It's like, because, you know, I'd done stuff with him outside of Leo Sayer Band. We had a couple of other things we did. And we'd do the odd covers here and there. In fact, we did a charity concert once with a guy that became my very dear friend, Damon Hill, the racing driver. So we did My Generation. Damon playing guitar and me on keyboards and other guys and Leo singing. And man, he sounded like Daughtry. And again, there's that connection because, of course, he wrote, Just a Boy. It's called Just a Boy.
Just a Boy.
There you go. And Leo, he does it as well, but Roger does it on one of his solo albums. So there's that connection with The Who, Ian, the Leo thing. There's all this kind of the world and the mind and the wonderful world of music.
Yes.
Interacts in a very mysterious way.
He's one of those guys that can take any format, any style, and just work with it. And there's not many artists that can do that.
No, that's very true. You know what? I'm very lucky because I've worked with a lot of great people in my life, and I do think I've worked with possibly two of the greatest UK singers. Mm-hmm. One of them is Gary Brooker, MBE, rest in peace, Gary. Yeah. And Leo Sayer. Yeah. You know, Leo is one of those legendary guys. He's just up there. He's consistent. He hasn't lost his voice. He's in his mid-70s now. In fact, it's his birthday shortly. Yes. And he's one of those guys that I actually see Leo as a national treasure. He seems to have been kidnapped by Australia, but
he loves Australia.
Yeah, I don't blame him. Lovely weather. But I toured in Australia with Leo, actually. Best seafood I've ever had in my life. Yes. We had some great times out there. And I this was, I don't know, 2000, so 20-something years ago. And I kind of had a feeling Leo would end up there because he just fitted, you know.
And he's got to know a lot of the, good Aussie singers as well. He's just about to go on tour with Joe Camilleri. Who is an incredible blues artist in Australia, you know, and I think they're going on tour simply because they're both born on the same day and they're both turning 75.
Are they?
So on that, and so they've said let's do a tour together.
Yeah, 150 years between them.
That's right. Yeah.
God, they're old, almost as old as Steve Crew.
Don't tell Joe or Leo that, but yeah.
No, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, but I mean, also that doesn't surprise me because obviously Joe is a very respected blues artist, and anybody that's worth their salt, weight, and gold, or whatever it might be, whatever the expression is, would know Leo he's the real thing.
Yeah,
it's a real thing. Yeah. So as you can imagine, we as the Think Loud, Think Loud
campaign.
band, we're called Think Loud. We're called Kindred Spirit for that reason. We know we're really lucky to have Leo on there, but he wouldn't have done it. A, if he didn't know me. B, if he didn't know Ian, and most importantly, probably if it wasn't a great song. And I'm proud to say I'm a co-writer of the song, and I knew once we'd written it, I thought, that's a good track. That's got the right attitude.
Yes. Now, there's another couple of names too that are on there that we can't forget either, and that is John Ilsley, you know, from Dire Straits. I mean, and then also Marcella Detroit. I mean, how did you get them involved with the project? Okay,
well. And there's also Stuart Elliott as well, the drummer.
And Stuart Elliott, yes,
that's another thing. So I'll go through their names in no particular order, but let's start with Marcy. So Marcy knew Ian, I think, and we've done 2 or 3 charity records over this kind of Zoom COVID world that we thankfully have moved out of.
Yes.
But this became the norm, didn't it? For this,
wasn't it a weird time?
Yeah. Horrible for music. First out, last back. It's one of those things. So Marcy sang BVs on a couple of the track sheet through Ian, I seem to remember. I'm not sure how the connection came from there. But of course, don't forget Marcy Levy, original name. She goes back quite a long way as well. She's no spring chicken, but she looks fantastic. But of course, she wrote Lay Down Sally with Eric Clapton.
Yes, she did. Yes, that's exactly right.
But we kind of know her from Shakespeare's Sister. That was the thing.
Shakespeare's Sister was fantastic. Turn Your Radio On. I mean, great song. Yeah.
Yeah, and Marcy's voice certainly was out there and shone very nicely, brightly. So she was very keen to come and get involved again. And if it was Paul and I and the other guys involved. So she said, send it over and I'll have a look. Again, here's some coincidences. So once Leo got on board, he said, oh, by the way, I know Marcy. She was my backing singer in the early 80s.
How's that? Yeah.
So they haven't been in connection because you know what it's like in this industry. We work with so many different people and you become great friends for maybe a couple of years while you're on tour together. And then you start to lose contact with people and you're out with somebody else. And then you hook up in a bar, maybe, I don't know, in LA. And you go, oh, man, it's you. I haven't seen you for a while. How are you? One of those. It doesn't surprise me that Leo had lost contact with Marcy for a while. And she's been doing her own thing and had her own career. But once she knew Leo was on there was this a massive connection again and energy going on there. It's like, wow, that's great. Going back to the Stuart Elliott contact, well, that was through probably, 10 or 15 years ago, I started playing with Jim Cregan, who's the guitar player from Rod Stewart's band, or no longer with Rod Stewart, but he was in the band for 28 years or something. But Jim used to be in a band called Cockney Rebel.
Yes, right.
In fact, that brilliant guitar solo on Come Up and See Me is Jim Cregan playing.
Yeah.
And the drummer in Cockney Rebel was Stuart Elliott.
Right.
Stuart Elliott also played on pretty much all of Kate Bush's records, including Wuthering Heights and all those great early tracks. So I hooked up with Stuart again. I played a few shows with him over the years, and I hooked up with him. I think I was playing with Jim somewhere last year. And we kind of hit it off again and said, we must keep in touch. So we were looking for names and people to help out with this record, because one of the things that I really insisted on, and I think we all probably agreed on, was I think it's very important that they're real musicians on a track like this. You don't want a drum machine. You don't want programmed bass. You don't want, drag and drop loops. That's not, to me, I'm not in that world. I'm still in the world of you get real people in, because there's nothing.
Yeah.
And I sent the track to Stuart and he said, I love it. I'll play on it. I've got my drum set up. I'll do it in a couple of days' time. So no time at all. We had me from Procol Harum. I'll get on to John in a minute. Stuart Elliott on drums and Marcy. So we had 3 names suddenly. Gary Brooker's old friend is a guy called John Colcott, who is on the board of directors of Cure Parkinson's UK.
Yeah.
Again. So I rang John up because I was wondering about whether he might have some thoughts about who might play on the track, because John is an old friend of Gary Brooker's. John also was the executive producer for a concert that was actually the last performance Gary ever did, sadly, which was for the Royal Marsden, a charity to raise money for the Royal Marsden Hospital over here. And it was a huge success with Eric Clapton and John from Dire Straits and Ian Pace from Deep Purple and Mike Rutherford and Eric Clapton and you name it. So John kept in contact with a lot of people, and John said, I'll give you John Isley's number. Funnily enough, we've just moved down to the south coast here, and John lives just along the road from me. Although, as the crow flies, it's 6 miles. If we were to take the boat, you'd have to go up and over a bridge. So it's about a 40-minute drive, actually. So I rang John up. I went and had a natter to him. We knew of each other, obviously. Yeah. We got on famously, and I said, look, do you fancy playing on this track? Yeah, send it over and have a look. Came back, said, love it. I'll do it next night in a couple of days' time. Wow. So I started to cook, and suddenly we had this incredible song on our hands with world-class vocals. And then there was this incredible thing where I had the idea of putting a gospel choir on it. Yeah. And it turns out that I've got some notes here so I don't get people's names wrong. There was, one of Ian's therapy guys at the same therapy, Ian Grant's therapy, was a chap called Clinton Jordan, who's a motivational coach, vocal coach, as well as an arranger and singer for what's known as the Kingdom Choir.
Right.
And Clinton, you'll see in the video, is the older guy with the grey hair, black guy, and he came out of retirement also almost and said, I want to get on this. And he started singing again, and it's really helped him because he was a great singer. So the bottom end in the vocal choir is from Clinton Jordan.
And the Jordan Family Gospel Choir.
Jordan Family Gospel Choir. And haven't they done a great job? I mean,
fantastic job, yeah. Fantastic.
So we now have, I think we really have a song here, Shane, that is world class. And if we can get it out there, it deserves to be successful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what are you hoping to achieve in terms of obviously raising funds for awareness for? I mean, and pardon my ignorance, but is Parkinson's disease something that can be cured?
Well, I don't think anybody knows that yet, but there certainly seems to be a lot of talk about it. And I was listening to a radio interview, or maybe. It was a few weeks before the official National Awareness, Parkinson's World Awareness Day, or month as I now understand it. And there was a guy on there saying that they reckon they're probably 10 years away from curing it.
Right.
So it's not, we don't want symptom control. We don't want people taking tablets to stop them shaking or to make their voice louder or whatever all the other symptoms may be. Wouldn't it just be absolutely fantastic if it's another one of those things that can be cured rather than, rather than a sticking plaster over. So I don't know medically, but I think the more people that are aware of Parkinson's, and there's a lot of people out there that got it, and the chances are there's a lot of people out there that know somebody that's got it, or an aunt or uncle or family or mum or dad or brother or whatever it might be. And I think with all of these things, it's like, well, it's awareness. People need to know, there are so many horrible things out there that people can get, and hopefully one day we'll have a cure for everything. I've always thought of us as really, we're simple machines, really complicated machines, really, that ultimately I'm sure one day we'll be able to fix everything. We just might understand that machine 100% yet.
Is the song somewhere that people can go to and listen to?
But I think if you go onto iTunes and Amazon and all of the usual download platforms, you can download it as well. And I think it's one of those things that, should I buy a cup of coffee for $1 or should I go and buy that tune for $1? I'll tell you what, I'll buy that tune. It just might help.
I think that's good.
Everybody needs to just prick their conscience occasionally and go, do I need that? Or should I do that? And if you've only got a dollar in your pocket, sometimes just think about the guy on the street or the guy with the disease or a Just Giving page or whatever it might be. It's very easy to be self-obsessed, and it's it's much easier to actually just give,
And it's affecting 10 million people worldwide. I mean, it's not a small disease by any stretch of the imagination. So,
No, and it seems that people are, I use coffee as an analogy, but it seems that people are very happy to part with their money for something like a cup of tea or a bottle of water. I mean, a bottle of water, £1.50 for a little bottle, which is, I was in a place the other day and I thought, that's mental. A plastic bottle, £1.50 for half a pint of water. Because I thought I was hot and I wanted a drink, I paid it. But, there seems to be this reluctancy these days. I think a lot of these platforms like Spotify and stuff that are £10, £10 a month in this country to listen to as much music as you want to. From one stream, that makes for the artist 0.007 pence. So
don't stream it, buy it. You've got to buy it.
Go and buy it. I mean, imagine going into Costa or one of these other big coffee chains and saying, I tell you what, if I give you £10 a month, can I drink and eat as much food as possible? They tell you to take a hike.
Isn't it crazy? Isn't it crazy?
It's just crazy. Whereas it seems that it's okay for music to do that. And music, I've got to stress this, Shane. Music isn't free. You know, it really isn't. And the likes of the goodness of all of my friends and me, putting our time together and using our thousands of pounds worth of equipment and a couple of days of our own time there. If you were to put a bill in for this record, it's 50 grand, but it's cost nothing. So we're giving our time, we're giving everything for free. Download it, part with $1.
Yeah.
It could really help.
We're going to have a listen to it. We're going to have a listen to it very shortly. Before we do, I ask this of all of my guests. What are you currently listening to on vinyl at the moment?
Oh, I don't listen to vinyl that much, although I did just hook my deck up the other day.
Right.
Deck for the first time in ages. And I think I put on something like Please Please Me, the Beatles, I think.
Right. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. I was going to say The Who. I thought it might have been The Who, but it wasn't.
Well, yeah, I have got some vinyl here. And I'll tell you what else I listened to and I hadn't listened to for ages. Do you remember this album?
Wings Across America.
Yeah.
What a great album that was.
Yeah. And I hadn't listened to that for years because, and I'll tell you what else I listened to as well. This is going to make you laugh. But again, it's just one of those synchronicity moments.
Wow, men at work, business as usual.
Yeah.
What's your favorite track?
I thought they were all really good. There's a couple of duff ones, but what's really interesting, Shane, is that I was at a party in about, what year was this? It must have been, it does say on it, 1982. So it was 1982. I was at a party. And just before I joined a heavy rock band called Diamond Head, a heavy metal band, I was at a party and there was an Aussie guy at the party and he had this record. I think just the single, actually. It might have been the album. And it was on at the party and that track Down Under was on. And I said, who's this? And this guy said, oh, mate, it's a band from home. And I said, did that sound like an Aussie? It kind of sounded like an Aussie, did it? Sounds like an Aussie. I can't quite do an Aussie accent. Anyway, I said, I love that. I love that track. That's fantastic. I went to the record store in my town the next day. And the guy said, never heard of them. I said, well, trust me, they're going to be huge. Can I order it? And this came in from Holland. I got it as an import. Right.
And now, of course, you realise that the lead singer is actually, Colin Hay is actually Scottish, right?
Do you know, I didn't know that. Yeah. I did not. But born in Scotland and lived in Oslo?
He is. I'm going to double check. He's lived in Australia for many years, but he was born in Ayrshire in Scotland. Ayrshire. Did I say that right? Ayrshire, yeah. Ayrshire, yeah. So there you go. And just won. In fact, just this last week, won the APRA award for songwriting for his work. He's been put into the APRA Hall of Fame. So, yeah, great guy. Colin Hay. He deserves that. Currently playing with Ringo Starr All-Star Band at the moment. So is he? And again, there's a coincidence because Gary Brooker was in Ringo's band at one point. Yeah, it's a small industry, isn't it? Yeah. And I'll tell you what else I listened to. Just reminded myself there because of what you said about Ringo Starr's All-Star Band. So we mentioned the Beatles, obviously there. Yes. And one of my all-time favorite artists is Johnny Winter's brother, Edgar Winter. Right. So, wow. Yeah, I love him. And he's playing, I think, still now with Ringo's All-Stars. Yes, he is. Yes. And probably Joe Walsh and a few other people. Yeah. Wow. So there's that connection. It's a small industry, isn't it? Yeah. It's a small world. Well, it's probably because we're all kind of a certain level of a kind of certain age, although Ringo's older than me, quite a bit older, but we all grew up kind of listening to the same stuff. I think music is a little bit disposable these days. I think it is, pop has always been a bit, disposable, I guess. Yeah. But when you listen to pop records from the 70s, some of it is brilliant, some of it is absolute garbage. Mm-hmm. But I do think that it's a bit too disposable these days. I think technology is in, hey, we could go on to AI and talk about how that's going to change. And let's not, because that's a dangerous slippery slope.
I don't want to go there.
Yeah.
I don't want to think about it,
No.
Let's use AI for sensible stuff, like trying to help find a cure for Parkinson's. That would make more sense.
Absolutely. Well, we could talk about music all day, and I love your passion that you put into everything you do. And this song, I love it. I think it's like you said, it needs to get out there. So thank you for doing what you do with your, looking for help for this disease that is so debilitating.
It's a pleasure, Shane. And if you want me to do anything else, I'll happily come back and chat to you. It's been a real pleasure talking to you.
Yes. Well, let's take a listen to the song. This is Think Loud, and it features, the band is called Kindred Spirit, features Leo Sayer on vocals, Marcella Detroit on backing vocals from Shakespeare's Sister, John Ilsley from Dire Straits on bass, Stuart Elliott from Cockney Rebel on drums and percussion, of course, yourself, Josh Phillips on piano, and Paul Mitchell on guitars. So,
do you want me to introduce it for you?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay, I'm chatting to Shane Bryan here. And he's just about to play the record that I'm involved in. This is Josh Phillips from Procol Harum. And this is a track that we've written for World Parkinson's Awareness Month. And the song is called Think Loud by Kindred Spirit.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I speak up 'cause I wanna be heard. PD ain't gonna steal my words. I sound drunk 'cause my speech is slurred. PD ain't gonna leave my vision blurred. No, no. I gotta fight, take the blows on my chin, and turn this PD mask into a grin. I stand tall, throw away the cane, learn how to walk and talk again. Think loud, so you can be heard. Think loud, and don't miss a word. Think loud, hold your head up high. Think loud, think loud, think loud. Think loud, think loud, think loud. Sing out, improve your decibel range, keep score, and do a session every day. Exercise your do, re, mi, fa, and start every day with an I. All right. Yeah. Gotta stay happy, give thanks to those near. Stop parking and start living, so says Johnny Monday. There's no cure at the moment, oh, but he's turned it around. Oh yeah. So never give up, it's too late when you're gone. One day at a time, that's why I'm singing this song. A session every day makes your voice a little louder. Louder. Think loud. You can be heard. Think loud. Oh, and don't miss a word. Think loud. Hold your head up high. Think loud. Think loud. Think loud. Think loud. So you can be heard. Think loud. Don't miss a word. Think loud. fight.
That was Think Loud by Kindred Spirit. And hey, Josh, fantastic song. Thank you for putting this together, because I think it's something that everyone needs to hear.
Once again, I'd like to personally thank the other guys in the band, and obviously that's John Isley, Stuart Elliott, Marcy Levy, Marcy Detroit, Paul Mitchell, the Jordan Choir, family choir, and obviously, of course, Leo Sayer, who's brought this whole thing together. And without Leo, we wouldn't be talking. And of course, to Ian, and I hope he gets some traction somewhere with this to try and help him, because he's an old friend, Big Country's manager, legendary, and let's hope that everybody can try and dig deep.
So don't just stream the song, head over and donate you can actually head over to their website, justgiving.com/campaign, Think Loud for PD, and you can do a bit of a donation, and you can click the link to download the song as well. For the cost of a cup of coffee, you might be able to help discover a cure. Josh, thanks for joining me on the show.
More than welcome. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thanks for listening. I hope you've enjoyed this episode of Long Way to the Top. Hit plus or follow to subscribe to the podcast, and head over to Facebook at the Long Way to the Top podcast and give us a like. Keep on rocking, and I'll catch you on the next episode of Long Way to the Top.